Max and Trudy Heller contributed so much to Greenville and to Furman. It's hard to limit their contributions to one or two things.
I think the one thing that enables our students of today is knowing the story of Max and Trudy's survival, because if ever there's a story of hope, success, and never giving up against all odds, it's Max Heller.
Growing up in Vienna, Austria, he became increasingly concerned about the onset of Nazism.
They took his job away, they forced him to wash the streets, they took all their possessions away, they shut down their bank accounts, they took their car, they took their apartment. And my father said to his parents, "We have to get out of here, and we're going to go to America."
As the situation grew more and more tense in the late 1930s, he literally escaped. And the only person he knew from the United States was a young woman that he had met at a dance in Vienna.
It was one dance and a half an hour walk. So he always kind of revered her his whole life.
The person, Mary Mills, who helped him escape Nazi-occupied Austria was a Greenvillian.
She took his letter to a businessman, Shep Salzman, in Greenville, and he said, "How can I, a Jew, not help when you, a non-Jew, want to help this person?" And he sponsored my father and his family to come to the U.S.
And instead of people resenting the arrival of a Jewish refugee in the Deep South, South Carolina leaders embraced young Max Heller. He was offered a job in a shirt-making factory in downtown Greenville.
Max, really the first day that he was in Greenville, began work in this factory.
Not too long after he was here, the loudspeaker called that, "Would Max Heller please come to the office? There's a judge here to see you."
And Max was so upset because he thought that meant the judge was going to send him back to Vienna. And it was Judge Plyler, who was a good friend of Mary Mills' father and Mr. Salzman, all of that. And he said that he wanted to welcome him to Greenville.
John Plyler, who was on the verge of becoming Furman's president, said, "I'm here to offer you all the services of Furman University to help you become an American."
From that day on, my father was devoted to Furman.
When someone like the president of Furman welcomes you, it's very much like Greenville is welcoming you. And he never forgot that.
So the Heller family and Furman University in Greenville, South Carolina, have all been intertwined in terms of their own progress and development over the last 50 years.
My father quickly rose, and from sweeping floors and cleaning toilets to the foreman of the cutting room, and then he became the vice president of the firm.
He ended up starting his own company making shirts. Then he went on to become a member of the city council and then the mayor.
He wanted to be sure that senior citizens had good homes. He wanted to be sure there was busing for people who needed it in the city. He integrated his factory when things were still segregated and said to people, "If you want to work with me, then everybody is the same." And so he did all those things very early on. And then I think some of the city elders came to him and said, "Would you run for city council?" And he won for city council. And then they asked him to run for mayor.
Throughout the 1970s, Max Heller was the mayor of Greenville, and he brought a vision of the future for Greenville that is still paying off dividends.
When he became mayor, he said that the heart of a city is the downtown, and he believed that the downtown Greenville had to be a place people wanted to live and be.
There is increasingly a lot of empty storefronts, people leaving the downtown area, and it wasn't a lively place anymore.
If you could have seen it when I grew up compared to what it's become now, He wanted tree-lined streets and outdoor cafes.
And so he took Greenville's 4-lane Main Street and condensed it to 2 and widened the sidewalks, planted trees, and created what we now call pinch points, places that people could gather in, have conversations. They would become social community spaces.
And it's almost like a little Austria or a little Europe to be in Greenville.
In terms of his legacy from his time as mayor, he is remembered most for the changes that he implemented in the downtown revitalization.
During his second term of being mayor, he was asked to run for Congress. And he was definitely favored to win. And right before the election, all the signs were taken down with his name on it all over. There were threats on our lives. The headlines in the paper, which I still have the paper, you know, Heller, a Jew doesn't believe in Jesus Christ. And it was so painful because here he had lived through Hitler, he had lived through escaping, he had lived through all that. And here in his beloved Greenville, all this stuff came right back up. And so he lost the election.
Fast forward to 1992. Furman officially split from its parent institution, the South Carolina Baptist Convention. And the reason that's significant to the Max Heller story is that the South Carolina Baptist Convention had previously had almost total control over who would serve as a trustee of Furman University. And the trustees had to be South Carolinians, and they had to be Baptists. They all had to be approved by the South Carolina Baptist Convention. After Furman split, one of the very first people that the Furman trustees invited to join them on the board was Max Heller. So he was Furman's first Jewish trustee.
He joined our board and became a very effective representative and ambassador for the university in the community and across the state.
Ordinarily, we would not have had the access to hospitals, lawyers' offices, schools. And the way that he helped us do that was he would talk to his friends and they would say, I don't know, Max, this is college students. And Max would say, yes, but these are Furman students. There's a difference. And you can see him serving and working right alongside the students.
I mean, he really cared. He really cared about Greenville. He cared about Furman. He cared about people. Cared about his family. And my mother too, you know, they were a team.
In 2002, his friends wanted to do something for him and Trudy, and they endowed CESC, Collegiate Educational Service Corps.
The Heller Service Corps, as it's called today, is one of the shining lights of the Furman experience. It's one of our most important programs, and that's largely because of the leadership and the inspiration provided by Max and Trudy in terms of social service, reaching out into the community and treating our students as citizens, not just as academicians.
They had no concept of what they endured, what they suffered before they arrived here.
But he wasn't bitter, that was the thing. I mean, he decided to do something positive instead.
He would just absolutely have just felt that was just the highest of heights of anything that he had ever achieved in life, that college students are going out under the Heller name and making a difference.
A kind word, a warm welcome, it changes your whole life. It makes a big difference. I think people need to become more involved to help those who cannot help themselves. We still have a lot to do. Today especially, I think the needs of people are greater than ever.